In this video, I'm going to show you how to conduct reflexive thematic analysis using MAXQDA. This is a step-by-step video. That means that we are going to follow the 6 steps proposed by Braun and Clarke to conduct reflexive thematic analysis so that we are able to go from raw transcript like this to a final findings report like this. The steps that we are going to be following to conduct reflexive thematic analysis were proposed by Braun and Clarke in their 2022 book titled Thematic Analysis, A Practical Guide. These steps include 1. Familiarizing with the data, 2. Generating initial codes, 3. Generating themes, 4. Reviewing themes, 5. Defining and naming themes, and 6. Producing the report. My name is Bernard Mugo. I like to refer to myself as an academic. In the past 3 years, I've helped more than 200 PhD students analyze qualitative data and finally complete their theses and dissertations. In the course of helping such a large number of students, I've gained invaluable experience in the best practices that you can use to perform qualitative analysis of your interviews and be able to retrieve quality findings. Now, before we go through the 6 steps proposed by Braun and Clarke on how to conduct reflexive thematic analysis, I would like to clarify why this approach has the word reflexive, which is a new addition to what was initially referred to as the Braun and Clarke 6 steps of doing thematic analysis. Reflexive thematic analysis, as proposed by Braun and Clarke, differs from the general approaches of doing thematic analysis because it emphasizes the reflexivity of the researcher. The reflexivity of the researcher simply means that the researcher has to remain aware of their experiences, background, perceptions, environment, and general biases that may affect their interpretation of certain qualitative data. For example, a researcher might have been born from a privileged position or even belong to a certain gender, for example, a man evaluating issues related to women, which may contribute to introducing biases to their interpretation. In reflexive thematic analysis, Braun and Clarke advocate for the researcher to maintain reflexivity by noting down all the influences that may affect their interpretation of data in documents called reflexive journals. So when conducting reflexive thematic analysis, a researcher has to keep reflexive journals, which is simply notes on their objective thoughts and feelings as they code data and the changes in thoughts as they analyze the data. The researcher can also note down their biases in reflexive journals. All these issues and all these reflexive journals that the researcher writes down during the process of reflexive thematic analysis should be highlighted in their thesis, dissertation, or research paper in a section called the role of the researcher. By keeping reflexive journals, a researcher is able to maintain reflexivity, which is important in conducting reflexive thematic analysis. Before we begin conducting reflexive thematic analysis through the 6 steps highlighted by Braun and Clarke, let's look at some examples of reflexive journals that they give in their book so that we can understand what kind of journals we should keep as we continue to conduct reflexive thematic analysis. So here is a journal that's given in the Braun and Clarke latest book on thematic analysis. So this is a journal on the latest version of a practical guide to thematic analysis by Braun and Clarke. These are reflexive journal entries. You can see they begin with a date, and then this person says, or this researcher is reflecting on their first focus group. Let me read for you to get an idea of what reflexive journals are. I had my first focus group today. After the group, I did try to write some reflections, but I was feeling so full and heavy with emotion. I needed some time to process what I was feeling. Having had some time to do this, I now know I was simply overwhelmed with the emotional content of the focus groups. Through the focus groups, I was shocked at how often the participants' experiences mirrored my own and how their feelings were similar to mine. I also felt grateful and humbled by their openness. I'm not sure if I would have been so honest, willing, and comfortable to talk about my own vulnerabilities in a group to that extent unless it was a friendship group. I admire their honesty and courage. I think that, however, I was reluctant to probe deeper with some members of the group because of my own uncomfortable feelings about sharing my own emotions with others. I feel that this limited the types of questions that I asked. In hindsight, I could have asked for clarification on several comments which would have provided more insights. It's important for me in the next focus group to not be afraid to probe deeper. This is a reflexive journal that this researcher wrote down. These are the kind of reflexive journals that we should be writing when we are conducting reflexive thematic analysis according to the 6 steps proposed by Braun and Clarke. Let's look at just another random example of a reflexive journal so that we may proceed. This is another example on a reflexive journal on coding. This one, they entered it on the 15th of January in the year 2017. I think I now have a hang of coding. It was very tricky at the beginning. I was not sure what I was doing. My code seemed more like sentences than codes. I was also finding the coding unbelievably slow since I was constantly evaluating and re-evaluating every code to make sure that I was capturing what participants are saying rather than imposing my own assumptions into the codes. Although it's currently going slightly faster since I'm more familiar with the coding process, one topic that is jumping out at me is the participants' perceptions of black men. I find it interesting how they were speaking about them in such a negative way, almost bandersome. They implied how black men lacked emotional strength and thus felt that being strong was not a choice but a necessity, since it compensated for the black man's inability to be emotionally strong. There is another reflexive journal entry. Basically, these are just examples of the kind of reflexive journals that we should be keeping when we are conducting reflexive thematic analysis by Braun and Clarke.
Let me interrupt this video for a minute and pose this question to you. Are you overwhelmed by qualitative data analysis? I've got you covered with 2 specialized services tailored just for you. But before I tell you of my services, let me first begin by informing you that I have an average 5-star rating from the previous clients that I've worked with, both in the done for you and in the consulting service. Now, here are the 2 services that I provide to help you in analyzing your qualitative data. The first service is the done for you qualitative data analysis service. In this service, I handle the heavy lifting so you can focus on the bigger picture. My service includes meticulous manual coding, where I code every word for meaningful insights, theme development, where I identify patterns that matter the most, data visualization, where I provide stunning visuals to tell your data story, findings report, where I provide a ready-to-use findings report for the 4th chapter of your thesis or dissertation, and a walkthrough video recording, which is a step-by-step explanation of how I analyze your data using MAXQDA. The second service I provide is one-on-one MAXQDA consulting. In this service, we hop on a video call via Microsoft Teams or Zoom, and in just a few hours, I'll help you become a MAXQDA Pro. Whether you are a beginner or looking to refine your qualitative data analysis skills, I'm here to guide you every step of the way. Don't wait, contact me today. My details are in the description and in the pinned comment.
Now, having differentiated reflexive thematic analysis from other general approaches of thematic analysis, let's go through each of the 6 steps proposed by Braun and Clarke on how to conduct reflexive thematic analysis using MAXQDA. Remember, MAXQDA is one of the most popular computer-aided qualitative data analysis software. So for the purposes of this video, we are going to be using MAXQDA 24 to conduct reflexive thematic analysis. Although I'm using this version of the software, which is the latest in the year 2025, you can use previous versions or later versions in the future to conduct reflexive thematic analysis by following the same steps. So let's conduct the first step of reflexive thematic analysis, which is familiarizing ourselves with the data. For this video, the example study that I'll be using is student views on teaching strategies used in a college. The transcripts are here. We're going to analyze maybe 1 or 2 transcripts. And the first step of reflexive thematic analysis is familiarizing with the data. When you are conducting a real study, of course, you are familiarizing with the transcripts by conducting the interviews, transcribing, proofreading, and editing. Then after you edit, you go and read the transcripts like a story and note the important issues. So that would include noting down the main points. So that's how you familiarize. You read them sentence by sentence, word by word. So you go to student 1, for instance. Here we have student 1 transcript and student 2 transcript. So you read all the transcripts sentence by sentence, word by word. After you familiarize with the transcripts, you are ready to move to the second step of reflexive thematic analysis, which is generating initial codes. We have first to understand what a code is. And before I define what a code is for you, I like to give an exact example to show examples of codes first, and then we define a code. Before we generate initial codes, it's important to understand what a code is so that we go open MAXQDA, see the basic setup of MAXQDA, and then we start generating initial codes. Let's look at an example of a code. Here we have an example of a paragraph that has been coded. Let's read through it and see some codes that this person, and by the way, this is gotten from a book called The Coding Manual by Johnny Saldana. So let's read it and see. He cares about me. He has never told me, but he does. He's always been there for me, even when my parents were not. He's one of the few things that I hold as a constant in my life, so it's nice. I really feel comfortable around him. He cares about me. He has never told me, but he does. That code is sense of self-worth. Okay? So sense of self-worth is the first sentence. He cares about me. He has never told me, but he does. Sense of self-worth. Second, he's always been there for me, even when my parents were not. He's one of the few things that I hold constant in my life. So that stability, or this was coded as stability. And 3, I really feel comfortable around him. Comfortable. What do these 3 codes show? The sense of self-worth is an interpretation of the quote, which is concise. Let me define a code for you. A code is a label or an interpretive statement to any information that's important to our research questions or objectives. So we code quotes or statements from participants that we believe are important to our research objectives or questions. With this in mind, we can go and open our data set and import the transcripts into MAXQDA and start generating initial codes, because we already know the initial codes will be interpretive statements to any information that we deem important. Let me go and open MAXQDA. Now, this is MAXQDA. When you open MAXQDA, you can see we get this menu. So I'm going to open a new project and call this initial coding. Then let's save this somewhere. Now, when you open MAXQDA, you see just the top menu, which has home, import, codes, memos, variables, analysis, mixed methods, visual tools, report, MAXDictio, and AI assist. Then we have the secondary menu. So for now, just focus on these 2 sections where we are going to import our transcripts and bring our codes. To import transcripts, we can either drag and drop them, or we can come here to transcripts and click on transcripts without timestamps. Then, of course, we go to our folder and we select the 3 transcripts, Control A, then we select open. And that's how we import transcripts or documents easily into MAXQDA. You see I have student 1, 2, 3. To open a document or a transcript, you just double click on it. That's what we have. You can see something in my transcript. Previously, I had gone and color coded my questions with specific colors. It's good to color code questions sometimes so that we assign the codes a certain color, which can help us combine the codes to form themes later, or we can know where the codes came from when we are generating initial codes. After I import the transcripts, I will create the codes here. Remember, this folder is called initial coding. Let's go and read and generate initial codes. Remember, a code is a label or an interpretive statement to any information that's important to our research questions. So let's do some coding. What is your experience as a student at the institution? Let me read the paragraph first, and then I'm going to come back and code as I show you. The college is nice. They make a new paint job in the beginning of the year, yes. They redo the roof also because it was bad here in winter. The classrooms leak. But the toilet is not nice. Toilet is always dirty, yes. Also, classrooms are not clean all the time. But I think it's students, they eat in class and they leave the paper there on the desk or on the floor. What are these institutions? Must I buy textbooks? At other institutions, they get textbooks for free. They get all the drawing equipment and calculator. Here, I must pay. Management is a problem as they don't communicate. The timetable is very confusing. When I came here in N4, I didn't know where I needed to be in class. Nobody explains to me. I wasn't sure if I was in group A or group B. I just follow the class. Sometimes I sit here the whole day and there is no class. So let's do some coding. They start with, what's your experience as a student at the institution? The college is nice. They make a new paint job in the beginning of the year. They redo the roof because it was bad in the winter. The classroom's leak, but the toilet is not nice. So we can say the college is nice. They make a new paint job in the beginning. So their experience is this one. We can say this statement. We can right click, select with new code, and let me voice type. Classrooms repainted. And I want to observe the color codes here because you see the question is color coded as red. I did this before I imported the transcripts. We can mark those codes as red so that we know where they came from originally. We are just marking the codes. You see that code has a color red, so I know they came from question 1. Then they redo the roof also because it was bad in the winter. Let me just code this as roof repairs or repairing the roof. Roof repairs. Again, the color code for that code is red because it came from question 1, which is red. You can see the codes are in red, but the toilet is not nice. Toilet is always dirty, yes. So dirty toilets. So let me highlight that sentence and code that as dirty toilets. Click OK. Also, classrooms are not clean all the time. So, dirty classrooms. Again, the color code for that is red, as you can see. Remember, my coding is very natural. I'm not trying to overthink because I can always come back and redo the codes. So I'm just tagging quotes that I believe are important to my objective. I'm tagging such quotes with concise statements. What at this institution must I buy textbooks? Other institutions, they get textbooks for free. They get all drawing equipment and calculator. Here I must pay. So experience here is insufficient learning aids. Again, we mark that code as red. You can see all codes from question 1 are red. I just want to know where they came from, so I'm using color codes. Management is a problem as they don't communicate. The timetable is very confusing. When I came here in N4, I didn't know where I needed to be in class. Nobody explains this to me. I wasn't sure I was in group A or group B. I just follow the class. Sometimes I see the whole day there is no class. So this whole paragraph can be right click, select with new code, mark that code as red, click on here, let me voice type, poor communication from the management, click OK. That's another code. So you can see already I have 6 codes and MAXQDA is counting my initial codes. You can see 6. Let's go to question 2. What's your current experience as a student with teaching strategies used in the classroom? Of the lecturers, don't explain very nicely. Sometimes I leave the class not knowing what is going on. I feel sometimes the lecturers are not just understanding at all when I ask them to explain again. Lecturers don't follow the right timetable. Sometimes I'm not sure it has changed, but lecturers say that they had class beforehand or after the period that we're supposed to have class. Most times I think lecturers arrive late for class and then change the timetable. After a lesson, it's difficult to know whether we are understanding the work or not, as it seems lecturers assume that we understand. Lecturers fail to give relevant feedback after we come with homework that was given. Let me read the question again before I start initial coding. What is your current experience as a student with teaching strategies used in the classroom? Of lecturers don't explain very nicely. Sometimes I leave the class not knowing what's going. I feel sometimes the lecturers are not just understanding at all when I ask them to explain again. So, let's say they are teaching strategies. Remember, this one is not color code red. Let me cancel that. This one is color code green. So right click with new code, choose this green and say inadequate explanations from the lecturers. You can see that code is green in the code section. Green because we are color coding that. Lecturers do not follow the right timetable. Sometimes I'm not sure it has changed, but lecturers say that they had class beforehand or after a period that we're supposed to have class. Most of the times I think lecturers arrive late for class then change the timetable. So lecturers not adhering to set schedules. So lecturers do not adhere to set schedules. That's another code where they are explaining that lecturers do not follow the right timetable. Let's highlight another thing here. Most of the times I think lecturers arrive late for class then change the timetable. If I right click code with new code, say punctuality challenges among lecturers, we can see that they are trying to say that the lecturers have punctuality issues. After the lesson, it's difficult to know whether we are understanding the work or not, as it seems lecturers assume that we understand. Lecturers fail to give relevant feedback after we come with homework that was given. So lecturers fail to give relevant feedback. Lecturers not providing sufficient feedback to students. So that's just a very easy code. I think we've coded that. Let's code another question. Question 3. What do you expect from the college? You can see the color code for that question is blue. They expect what? Education and work placement. Let's highlight that. These are two codes. The first code I'm going to code in vivo. In vivo means the quote and the code are the same. So I code in vivo. So that one is education. Then I right click on the code. I change the color to green. You can see initially it was blue. And then work placement. We right click. Code in vivo again, then right click, then we go to green. So right click again, select code properties so as to edit a given code. So they want education and work placement. There is a follow-up question here which the researcher is asking. Are you saying that the education given is not good at the college? The lecturers are constantly rushing through some of the work. I don't understand half the things they are saying. Maybe it's because of the pandemic. If you look at this question, you can see it relates to question number 2 rather than question number 3. It's like the experience of teaching strategies. So, lecturers rush and do not take sufficient time to explain concepts. That one I color coded it as green because it relates to question number 2. And by the way, I want to go back and redo the color codes for question number 3. Sorry, they should not be green, they should be blue, because blue is the color code for question number 3. Let me right click and then I select color blue on the color code there. So let's code another question. Question number 4. Do you experience, I think this one is navy blue, do you experience challenges and difficulties that deter you from achieving academic success? New lecturers struggle in class. Sometimes students tease them because he is new. We struggle because there is a new lecturer that comes in to teach in the other lecturer's place, but we don't learn anything from her. I have to work so I can feed me and my brother every day. We don't have parents to help us. My parents died a long time ago, so I don't have support. I don't have money to come to school or for fees. I did not have good results at the end of grade 11, so the college put me in the NCV program. I finished up till level 4, but now I'm struggling in N4 because I did not do the work that is being taught. What are the challenges and difficulties that deter this student from achieving academic success? One of the challenges is, let me put that as, I think it's navy blue. Let me just choose purple, not purple, because I might need purple. Let me just click on this and choose a new color. I think this is more of this dark navy blue color. So this challenge is new lecturers that are not able to teach effectively. So they said the challenge is new lecturers that are not able to teach effectively. Another challenge is financial. So this student says they have financial challenges as they don't have parents. So I click on that color. Financial challenges as a result of being an orphan. Challenges as a result of being an orphan. So that's another code. I'm not trying to get the right codes in this step, because normally we'll conduct another step called revising codes. But this is the second step of reflexive thematic analysis by Braun and Clarke in MAXQDA, which is generating initial codes. Now let's move to the third step in the Braun and Clarke reflexive thematic analysis, which is generating initial themes. How do we generate themes? We have codes. So I want to go and close this file and show you how we handle different files in MAXQDA, because even if we try to combine the files, it's not possible. So normally I'll come and close the project, copy the project, paste the project, and rename the copy to RTA preliminary themes. So I'm going to do my edits and I'm going to still preserve the original copy. Let's open the second copy called preliminary themes, and we can close the initial coding copy. Now, before I go to starting to generate or combining codes to get themes, what I would do is to review the codes. So I double click on the code, I click on the quote, I check the quote, and revise the codes accordingly before I start combining them to form themes or preliminary themes. So they redo the roof also because it was bad in here in the winter. So that's roof repairs. I think that's good. These are my codes. How do I combine codes to form themes? First, we look at the original question or the codes. If you read them, you start seeing some emerging patterns of shared meaning. Student experiences in the institution. We have poor communication, insufficient learning aids, dirty classroom, dirty toilets, roof repairs, classrooms repainted. So I can come here, click on plus, and this one will be a theme, and I want to mark it as red, and I want to call this, remember this software is called Everything Code. Student experiences at the institution. So that's not a code now. I will show you why. This is a preliminary theme. Actually, I can right click and go to properties and call this theme 1. It's a preliminary, the first preliminary theme. I can put theme #1. Student experiences. We are going to have a description for this theme. And to have a description, you right click, click on memo, and you say, this theme represents the different student experiences at the learning institution, including positive and negative experiences. So I'm adding a memo. If you look at the Braun and Clarke 6 steps of conducting reflexive thematic analysis, it's like I'm generating themes, reviewing them, and defining them at the same time. But that's a description I was just adding. Student experiences at the institution. If you remember all the codes marked as red, I can move them there. They are related to student experiences at the institution. So I can drag and drop those codes in there. You see now, we have a theme and codes. But this is not all. I have to review this more, review and refine themes, which will be the next step. But for now, let's just leave it at that. Let's look at another shared pattern of meaning. If you look at the codes in green, inadequate explanation from the lecturers, lecturers not adhering to set schedules, punctuality challenges among lecturers, lecturers not providing sufficient feedback to students, lecturers rushing and not taking sufficient time to explain concepts. Actually, let me click on this and rename this code to not taking sufficient time to explain concepts. You can see I just revised that code. When you look at the question the person was asking here, what is your current experience as a student with teaching strategies used in the classroom? I can create, I go to codes, plus sign, this one is green, experiences of students with teaching strategies in the institution. So experiences of students with teaching strategies in the institution. Remember, I can right click, select code properties and edit this. This one can be theme #2 or theme number 2. So theme number 2. For that, I want to select all these issues, drag and drop them. So drag and drop the codes under the theme that I want to assign them in. Drag, drop, drag, drop, drag, drop. So theme 2. Experiences of students with teaching strategies in the institution. Again, that's the second preliminary theme. It's not a final theme. I'm going to come and review this later. So we are going to review, refine, and then we are going to add descriptions. So that's that. There's this question they asked, what do you expect from the college? So this one can be, and the color code for that is blue. It can be the 3 student expectations from the college. Student expectations from the college, you can see work placement and education. I drag those 2 codes, I assign them or drag and drop them under theme 3. And then look at the final. Do you experience challenges and difficulties that deter you from achieving academic success? Challenges deterring students from achieving academic success. So that one will be navy blue. Good. So drag and drop that, then drag and drop that. So that's how we move from initial codes to generating initial themes, which is the third step of Braun and Clarke reflexive thematic analysis. Let's go to the fourth step, reviewing themes. How do we review themes? So with these preliminary themes, I can go and close this MAXQDA. Then I can copy and paste this version and rename this to revised or final themes. Okay, I can call it final themes or revised themes. This is another MAXQDA. Remember, we have initial coding, another one called preliminary themes, and another one called final themes. We export anything from MAXQDA, which I'm going to show you how we are going to export the code system and how we can even go and report our findings and extract codes. Now we have this. How do we review and refine? We look at the codes and we read the theme again. Then we ask ourselves, what do we need to do more? What does this mean? If you look at student experiences at the institution, you can see poor communication from the management, insufficient learning aids, dirty classrooms, dirty toilets, roof repairs, and classrooms repainted. If you look at this, you can see experiences related to facilities. So facility related experiences, which we can subdivide positive and negative experiences. If we go to the theme and say or highlight positive experiences, you can see still under the theme student experiences at the institution, I've created another sub-theme called positive experiences. So positive experiences is sub-theme 1. Positive experiences. And then let's go under the theme and click on the plus sign and call this sub-theme 2 negative experiences. Okay, sub-theme 1 positive experiences, sub-theme 2 negative experiences. Let's read the codes again. Poor communication from the management, that is a negative experience, of course. Insufficient learning aids, that's a negative experience. Dirty classroom, negative. Dirty toilets, negative. Roof repairs, positive experience. Classrooms repainted, positive experience. You can see how we review and refine themes to make them better. We can conduct this and the fourth step together, but for this, let me just focus on this step of Braun and Clarke, which is reviewing themes. We review the themes to organize them to have more nuanced meaning. That's for theme 1. Let's look for theme 2. Experiences of students with teaching strategies in the institution. Lecturers rushing, inadequate explanations, lecturers not providing sufficient feedback, punctuality challenges, and lecturers not adhering to set schedules. Not adhering to set schedules and punctuality challenges might be the same thing. So how do we merge? I right click, okay. I go, let's say the two codes say the same thing. I go and copy the coded segment. Then I go and paste. So paste coded segment. You see the numbers here will change to 2. That means I can go and delete the previous code. And before I delete it, let me double click on it so that you see the code that was in here. Lecturers do not follow the right timetable, okay? So let's double click the other code and see. You see? Lecturers do not follow the right timetable. So we have imported the code and now we can delete the previous code. And that's how we merge codes. That's how we review that theme. Theme number 3, student expectations from the college, work placement and education. That makes sense. And theme number 4, challenges deterring students from achieving academic success. New lecturers that are not able to teach effectively and financial challenges as a result of being an orphan. That's how we conduct the fourth step of reflexive thematic analysis, which is reviewing themes. How do we conduct the fifth step of reflexive thematic analysis, which is defining and naming themes? How do we define and name themes? Easily. We click or we right click on theme 1, select memo, and I think I had added a description for this one. But let's go and open that theme and create, right click, select memo, and write descriptions for the sub themes. So let's write here This sub-theme represents the negative student experiences at the institution. And then under sub-theme 1, we go and do memos again and say, this sub-theme represents the positive experiences of the students in the institution or at the institution. You can see we are adding memos or we are adding descriptions. Now, there's one thing before I keep editing. You can see the way my themes are organized. It's like they are in descending order. How do we fix that? We right click, go to sort A to Z. So that will tell MAXQDA that we want to reorganize, and I can do it again by the way, sort A to Z. So that means that I don't have consistent spacing. Let me go and do consistent spacing. So let me go again and I click sort A to Z. You see, now it's well organized. Let's expand on that for you to see the themes better. Let me even click on this and go to sort A to Z subcodes. That's how we organize. Let's look at theme 2, experiences of students with teaching strategies at the institution. So if I go to memo, I'll say this theme represents the diverse experiences of students with the different teaching strategies employed by lecturers in the institution. Okay, then let's write for theme 3 that we can close that. For theme 3, let's right click and go to memo and let's write this. This theme represents the different student expectations of what they want to gain from attending the college. And finally, challenges deterring students. Let's voice type. This theme represents all forms of challenges that deter students from achieving academic success. Not that deter, that can deter. Okay? Look at that. We have added clear descriptions for our themes, which is the 5th step of reflexive thematic analysis by Braun and Clarke. Perfect. That's how we move all the way from initial transcripts all the way to having clearly defined themes with descriptions. After we are done with that step in MAXQDA, we are done with our analysis, and we can go and click on reports, export code system, and I want to export this code system because we were just writing memos, so I want you to see what these memos are and how we are using them. So this is what we just exported. Look at it. This is the code system that we just made. Sometimes in MAXQDA you see 00 for the frequencies. I don't like that. What do? I normally fix that manually. You can see theme 1 has 6 frequency or 6 quotes. So I'll come to theme 1 and add the number manually, 6. You can see subtheme 1 has 0, subtheme 2 0. MAXQDA doesn't aggregate. So I go and click on theme 1. If I close this subtheme, you can see subtheme 1 has 2 quotes. Subtheme 2 has 4 quotes. I go and fix that in the code system by putting number 2 here manually and number 4. I think it's a problem with the software that they need to address so that it can aggregate everything. Basically, this is the code system that we have. Clear themes, clear descriptions, clear codes, and that's how we conduct the Braun and Clarke 6 steps of reflexive thematic analysis. So after exporting the code system, another thing we can export from MAXQDA is click on the theme, click control click to activate all the themes, then control click to activate one of the transcripts. By the way, I used one transcript. I could have coded 2, but 1 is still sufficient for the purposes of this video. If I click on that and I go to retrieved segments down here, let me expand it for you to see. You can see the quotes and the subthemes where they belong. If I go to export Excel file, let's not do wait. Let's click OK, and let's save this somewhere as coded segments. So let's see the coded segments. Look at that. We can extract the quotes that we just coded in an Excel format, and we can know where they came from. For example, the 1 called student experiences at the institution. Under that, there are positive experiences, which is a subtheme, which is classrooms repainted. And then the quote is, the college is nice, they make a new paying job in the beginning of the year. You see, that makes sense. Let's look at another example. Theme 1, student experiences at the institution. Sub-theme 1, positive experiences, roof repairs. What's the quote? They redo the roof also because it was bad in here. In winter, the classrooms leak. Now, that's how we export a code system from MAXQDA. Basically, that's the way it is. What's another thing that we can get? From that, now we go and write the findings report. I cover the writing of the findings report in other previous videos, even by using NVivo, which I think still works the same. But the issue is, or how do we handle this, is we just go and start giving or using the descriptions to narrate our story and providing evidence from different participants and quotes. Basically, that's what I'm going to do to write the findings report. So I will attach a video where I go in detail on how to do this and write the findings report, or another strategy, and that's how you can go and write the findings report. So I'll put the link in the description for the next video for the final step of reflexive thematic analysis, which is producing the report. For now, those are the 5 steps of reflexive thematic analysis, which include familiarizing with the data, generating initial codes, generating themes, reviewing themes, and defining and naming themes. Click on the link in the description to watch the next video on how to produce the findings report.
Remember, if you are feeling stuck with your data analysis chapter, don't stress. I'm here to help. I offer done for you qualitative data analysis using MAXQDA, and my done for you service includes coding, theme development, and visualization. On the other hand, if you prefer to learn and do the analysis yourself, I provide one-on-one MAXQDA consulting, where I'll guide you step by step to master MAXQDA in performing qualitative data analysis. Reach out to me right now. Check the description for my email and link to my website. Thank you.